So normally, there's two things I'll do. Either when I go somewhere, I will bring copies of my book with me, and I will always provide someone with a reason for why I'm giving a book. Generally speaking, it's not great to just give someone something because
Mm.
there's no real value tied to it. But you could say, "Hey, I really appreciate the conversation we've had, and the connection that we've had. Here's something I'd like to give you. This book is about building relationships. So the book before last is relationships that work. So here's something about building relationships because again, this is what I'm an expert at. Do. Boom, boom, boom. Or hey, I really love that talk that you just gave. I like to share something with you on that topic. Here's my book that actually talks about some of the key pieces, but I like to also. Do you mind if we meet for coffee? I'd love to talk to you about this more. So using it in addition to, so not just leaving them out there whenever possible. Sometimes you are in spaces, and I 100% speak in rooms where my book is just at the table and everyone gets a copy of the book. Like that's just what it is. But whenever possible, I like to be the person giving that book to someone because I can tell them why I'm giving it to them and why it was important, and then following it up with, "Hey, look, yeah, I'd love to connect with you next week or so. Can we make this happen?"
Yeah, and I think what you said about like your avatar niche and the value that's tied to your book, and specifically being strategic about who you give it to, is very important. So I was at a conference one time, and I remember this author walking around, and he was younger, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to take my book home. I had extra books that I didn't give out here," and he's literally just handing his book out to people. And I'm looking at it, and I look him up on Amazon. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to read anything from this author again because if he doesn't value his work, why should I?
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, so the intention you give your book with is super important. But like you said, at the same time, if you're at a speaking engagement and you have your book at a table for everybody, that's the purpose of that book, right? Because people have come to see you at that keynote, so they
Mhm.
usually are expect like having a book just
Yeah.
enhances that excitement about wanting to talk to you about working with them because they've seen your keynote. So that keynote is actually the strategic piece that hooks them into your book. But if you're
Mhm.
talking one on one with person, absolutely, you need to be very strategic about not spraying your book, but saying your book and handing it to someone for a specific purpose, which is great advice. And that's actually how Tim Ferriss got his book on the New York Times bestseller. Is he went
Mm.
to a South by Southwest conference years ago, and he had literally pages marked out in his chapters for different people to read specific parts of chapters. And he handed it to this one guy that was a columnist, and he wrote a big column about it, and it like blew up. And so that's really important to be strategic about who you're giving it to and telling them why you're giving it to them as well.